Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Renu Kataria, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's party files review petition against Supreme Court's verdict on no trust motion. Voting over the no confidence motion expected to be held in a short while from now. Hafiz Talha Saeed, the son of Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, notified as a terrorist under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Precaution dose of COVID vaccine for those above 18 years of age begins in India on Sunday. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to leave for the United States on Saturday night on a 6-day visit. The Indian Army and DRDO successfully flight test Pinaka Mk1 Enhanced Rocket System and Pinaka Area Denial Munition Rocket System. Saudi Arabia to allow 1 million pilgrims to perform Hajj this year. Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences bars actor Will Smith from attending the Oscars for 10 years. India win the first ever gold medal at the WSF World Doubles Squash Championships in Glasgow. And in the Indian Premier League, Sunrisers Hyderabad defeat the Chennai Super Kings by 8 wickets in Mumbai. In another match, Mumbai Indians set a victory target of 152 runs before the Royal Challengers Bangalore in Pune. In Pakistan, the ruling party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI), on Saturday filed a review petition against the Supreme Court's verdict setting aside the National Assembly Deputy Speaker's rejection of the no-trust motion against Imran Khan. According to the local media reports, the petition filed against the Thursday's verdict by the Apex Court seeks a review of the ruling given by the 5-member bench headed by Chief Justice Umar Ata Bandial. In another development, Imran Khan called a cabinet meeting. The voting over the no-confidence motion in the National Assembly against Prime Minister Imran Khan is expected to be held on Saturday night. Heavy security has been deployed outside the National Assembly. The Apex Court had on Thursday ordered the government to hold the voting on the motion on Saturday at all costs, according to the agenda issued for the April 3rd session, when the Deputy Speaker rejected the motion through a ruling declaring it unconstitutional and a foreign conspiracy. The Apex Court also reconstituted the National Assembly, which was dissolved by the President on the advice of Imran Khan. On Sunday last, the no-confidence motion against Imran Khan's government was dismissed by the Deputy Speaker Qasim Suri. Terming the move unconstitutional, the opposition parties had challenged the Speaker's decision in the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the US has again turned down Imran Khan's allegations regarding the involvement of Washington in toppling his government through a no-confidence motion. In a press briefing, the Deputy State Department spokeswoman Jalina Porter said that there is absolutely no truth to these allegations.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on Pakistan at Crossroads. In conversation are Yogendra Kumar, Foreign Ambassador, and Sanjay Jha, journalist.
Pakistan's parliament convened today to vote on Prime Minister Imran Khan's future as the nation's Prime Minister after Supreme Court ruling that the rejection of the vote against Khan by Deputy Speaker was unconstitutional. The ruling was seen as dealing a massive blow to Khan's hope of remaining power in Pakistan and his plans of calling for fresh elections. Ambassador Kumar, why suddenly we see a political churning in Pakistan? An army seems to be in a neutral mode this time. What's happening in Pakistan?
Well, actually, it's an accumulation of the gathering problems that Pakistan has been facing for the last several years. As you know, that Imran Khan had won his election mandate on the ground of improving the economy in Pakistan and the anti-corruption and so on and so forth. But during his period of ascendancy, what you actually have now is that the condition in Pakistan actually worsened, whether it's because of coronavirus and its negative impact on the economy, or is the overall economic performance in terms of the trade deficit, balance of payment issues, and also the FATF, as you know, the Financial Action Task Force, because of which you find that Pakistan is not attracting the kind of investment that they're expecting. And you can add to that also the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects, which are also not really yielding the dividends that they were expecting. As a result, what you actually find is that Pakistan actually has been forced to go to the IMF, and the IMF had its own agenda about improving the economy, restructuring, so on and so forth. And they've actually been going to Saudi Arabia, for example, for getting some kind of financial aid and so on and so forth. So you find that Pakistan actually is that kind of a mess. And then add to that, what you find also is that, the other issues like climate change and those kinds of things. And on top of that, I think what is important for us to remember is that Pakistan actually is a diarchy. There are two power centers. The main power actually, critical power handled by the army, and you have the election. And you find there's a paradigm, it's a kind of political paradigm in Pakistan, that every time an Imran Khan actually is called, in a way, the selected prime minister. The fact of the matter is that every time a prime minister comes into office, after a while you find that the clash begins between them. And you find that happening on several issues. For example, we know that Imran Khan actually has got the current chief of army staff, General Bajwa, 3-year extension, which is actually quite unprecedented. And then last year, he actually was shaping or grooming another sort of general who was then the head of the ISI, General Faz Ahmad, groom him actually to become the next chief of army staff. And that is where you find the clash arising. So that is really the clash. And you find this kind of situation, the opposition parties, which are also a bit of a ragtag of all kinds of local interest groups, family parties, and so on and so forth. And whenever they find that, let's say, a particular incumbent is becoming somewhat embattled, then they start the movement, a popular movement against them, because in any case, because of poor governance, there is a residual angst and disaffection among the wider population. And that is tapped into by these kind of opposition movements begin from time to time. And that's really what you find is happening. But it's happening at an even more complicated situation. As you know, Afghanistan is far from settled. We all know that, because, as you know, the Taliban haven't delivered on what the army and Pakistan government were expecting. And because of it's an unstable country, Afghanistan, I mean. So you find that adding to its problems. And then you find that this kind of situation is a toxic mix where then it manifests itself into, let's say, policy clashes and so on and so forth. That's really what's happening in Pakistan. So it's a repeat of the kind of pattern that you see from time to time. And I don't see any possibility that whatever the outcome of the current, let's say, drama which is unfolding in Pakistan, that will lead to a more stable or even calmer Pakistan.
One thing we noticed particularly this time, like yesterday, after the Supreme Court's ruling, Prime Minister Khan addressed the nation and declared himself disappointed with the judicial outcome. We saw him talking about praising of India and called it a nation of Khudar Qawm, or self-respecting people, and said that no superpower, and allusion probably to the United States, and some claim is behind the political turmoil in Pak, could dictate terms to it. Why has he started praising India at almost on his way out and slamming US? You think Americans have been involved in his regime change, or he was expecting a help from Americans, which Americans have not extended him, allowing to retain the power?
I think it's, in terms of, let's say, India-Pakistan relation, these comments are of peripheral consequence. If anything, I think it is more a critique or an attack on particularly the army, because of the fact that, he is trying to show that his foreign policy is better than what the army is posing, because of which you find that he actually sort of making overture to Russia about his proximity and closeness to China. And then the army coming out open is actually quite unusual. The chief of the army staff actually, very shortly after his praising his own policy and, so on and so forth, actually contradicting him by saying that, criticizing Russia openly as far as Ukraine is concerned and praising the US. So you find that, it's actually more a dimension, a manifestation, the internal power struggle, let us say in this case, between the army and Imran Khan, because, what's actually happening. It is quite, in a way, wondering what it is such a prolonged kind of a standoff and confrontation which is now taking place. You have the President of Pakistan post haste accepting Nawaz Sharif, Imran Khan's recommendation to dissolve the parliament, call for election. You have the Deputy Speaker of the parliament rejecting the vote of no confidence against Nawaz Sharif and recommending that the parliament be dissolved. And then you find that when the opposition parties have gone to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court actually orally ruling the decision of the president of the country, of the parliamentary, let's say, speaker or deputy speaker, and then actually setting the ball rolling in a different direction. And it's not stopped at that, because Imran Khan is still talking about mobilizing the public and the public rallies and so on and so forth. And you find that this kind of a tussle is playing out in the Punjab province, it is playing out in the frontier province, and you find these kind of, in fact, to an extent, even in the Pakistan occupied assembly. So you find that, these kind of rumbles are taking place throughout the country, and it's going to continue for quite a while, because I personally feel, my sense is that whilst army has declared no confidence in Imran Khan, I'm not quite sure whether they are quite comfortable with the other people in the opposition, because each one of these major political parties, they've had major confrontation with them. Whether it is Nawaz Sharif, Pakistan Muslim League, whether it is Pakistan People's Party or Benazir Bhutto. I mean, she actually, in a way, you find her husband and her son are the legacies of her political leadership in Pakistan at that time. And you find the MQM, again, different factions, because MQM at one time actually has been against the army, and army had to carry out several operations, military operations inside Karachi to control and to contain the MQM. And then, of course, you have people like Jamaatul Islam, Fazlur Rahman group, which actually, so all of these people actually have had their links with the extremists, the terrorist elements, including Shehbaz Sharif. So quite frankly, you find that, as I see the situation getting messier. Pakistan is in for a prolonged kind of confrontation, as I see it now.
Yesterday, the role of Pakistan's Supreme Court has come in the spotlight, and the Supreme Court's ruling is being seen as a new dawn of democracy, the upholding of the rule of constitutional law, and the burial of infamous doctrine of necessity that has been used by Pakistan's judiciary to legitimize and justify extra-constitutional steps taken mostly by the military. Why do you think Supreme Court has, not sort of bailed out Imran Khan this time? Is it because the army doesn't want him to continue, or is it like Supreme Court really felt that Imran Khan was trying to subvert the constitutional provision by not having this no confidence motion in the parliament? What would you like to say about the role of and the verdict of the Supreme Court of Pakistan?
Well, actually, I think I would agree with what you're saying, because the fact of the matter is that in one way the army is against Imran Khan. So very clearly the Supreme Court judgment actually is in a way buttresses the political line that the army has taken vis-a-vis Imran Khan. So that's one side to it. The other side, of course, is that they've said what they had to say, but still it's still extraordinary that the Supreme Court should be actually taking a position on something which is happening in the parliament and what the president is doing. But the fact of the matter is that they also were violating the constitution very clearly. I mean, there is no concurrent motion from the parliament, and the speaker says, no, we'll first discuss the foreign conspiracy before we come to this. And then he doesn't discuss that at all, and simply adjourn the parliament, and the president dissolves the parliament. So very clearly you see that I will not read too much into it, because ultimately, how does the constitution, let's say constitutional machinery work? I mean, it actually, the Supreme Court provides certain kind of a constitutional framework, but the different functions, different organs of the constitution, different bodies of the constitution, the parliament, the presidency, the prime minister, even the political parties, how they're conducting themselves, I think that is even more critical. Because, the Supreme Court has said what it had to say. Circumstances may change, the Supreme Court may say something quite different. It all depends on several factors.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for your time and explaining the situation in Pakistan.
Thank you.
A senior leader of terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, Hafiz Talha Saeed, has been notified as a terrorist under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. Hafiz Talha Saeed is the son of Hafiz Muhammad Saeed and head of the cleric wing of Lashkar-e-Taiba. Indian Ministry of Home Affairs in a notification said Hafiz Talha Saeed has been actively involved in recruitment, fund collection, planning and executing attacks by Lashkar-e-Taiba in India and Indian interests in Afghanistan. The ministry said Hafiz Talha Saeed has been actively visiting various LAT centers across Pakistan and during his sermon propagates jihad against India, Israel, United States of America and Indian interest in other Western countries.
In Jammu and Kashmir, the security forces arrested 2 terrorist associates of proscribed terror outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba LET in central Kashmir's Budgam district on Saturday. Giving details, the police said that incriminating materials besides arms and ammunition have been recovered from their possession. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
The Government of India has decided to make precaution dose of COVID vaccines available to everyone above 18 from Sunday at private vaccination centres. The Union Health Ministry said all those who are above 18 years of age and have completed 9 months after the administration of second dose will be eligible for precaution dose.
In India, the prices of Serum Institute's COVID vaccine Covishield and Bharat Biotech's vaccine Covaxin have been slashed significantly. The CEO of Serum Institute of India, SII, Adar Poonawala, said in a tweet that the company has reduced the price of the vaccine for private hospitals from 600 rupees to 225 rupees per dose. He said that the decision has been taken after a discussion with the Government of India. Bharat Biotech's co-founder and joint managing director Suchitra Ella said in a tweet, after consultation with the central government, Bharat Biotech has decided to revise the price of the vaccine from 1200 rupees to 225 rupees per dose for private hospitals.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will leave for the United States on Saturday night on a 6-day visit. In a tweet, Mr. Singh said he looks forward to attend the 4th India-US 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue in Washington, D.C. He will also visit United States Indo-Pacific Command Indo-PACOM headquarters in Hawaii during the visit. The Defence Minister said the visit to the United States will give him an opportunity to hold talks with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken alongside External Affairs Minister Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar on ways to deepen the India-US strategic partnership. Mr. Singh said he is looking forward to fruitful interactions during the visit. Pinaka Mk1 Enhanced Rocket System EPRS and Pinaka Area Denial Munition ADM rocket systems have been successfully flight tested by Defence Research and Development Organisation DRDO and Indian Army at Pokhran firing ranges. A report.
A total of 24 EPRS rockets were fired for different ranges during the last fortnight. Required accuracy and consistency was achieved by the rockets, meeting all trial objectives satisfactorily. With these trials, the initial phase of technology absorption of EPRS by the industry has successfully been completed, and the industry partners are ready for user trials or series production of the rocket system. The Pinaka rocket system has been developed by Armament Research and Development Establishment, Pune, supported by High Energy Materials Research Laboratory, another Pune-based laboratory of DRDO. The EPRS is the upgraded version of Pinaka variant, which has been in service with the Indian Army for the last decade. The system has been upgraded with advanced technologies, enhancing the range to meet the emerging requirements. After establishing the performance efficacy of the enhanced range version of Pinaka, the technology was transferred to the industries Munitions India Limited MIL and Economic Explosives Limited Nagpur. Rockets manufactured by MIL under transfer of technology from DRDO were flight tested during this campaign. Different variants of munitions which can be used in the Pinaka rocket system were also successfully evaluated in the Pokhran field firing range. Chairman DRDO, Dr. G. Satish Reddy, has congratulated the teams for completing the flight trials of new designed rockets based on advanced technologies in record time. Anita Anand for World News, All India Radio.
In the midst of Sri Lanka's severe economic crisis, National People's Power NPP's MP Vijitha Herath on Friday said that President Gotabaya Rajapakse should be impeached if he does not resign on his own and the no confidence vote fails. A motion should be filed against the current government. According to Harith, the parliament should first address the company's political crisis before addressing the people's economic challenges. He stated that he and his party are prepared for both impeachment and a no-confidence motion against the president. He said that they are prepared to support both impeachment and a no-confidence motion. Mr. Harith went on to say that everyone should call on the president to resign.
Thailand's purchase of a Chinese submarine may be cancelled after a German company expressed its inability to supply the required propulsion system. A massive government-to-government submarine procurement deal faces the chopping block if China is unable to fit the engine specified in the purchase agreement, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha warned last Monday. Mr. Prayut was responding to reporters' questions after the Bangkok Post reported that a German company had refused to supply MTU 396 diesel engines to China for installation in the S-2060 Yuan-class submarine being built for the Royal Thai Navy RTN. According to the media outlet, the Prime Minister directed the Navy to do everything possible to complete the deal.
Teachers groups, students, cultural activists and social organizations of Bangladesh have demanded immediate release of a school teacher, Hridoy Chandra Mondol, who was arrested on March 22nd in Munshiganj on charges of hurting the religious sentiments of people. Dhaka University Teachers Association, DUTA, has called the complaint lodged against Hridoy Chandra Mondol by another employee as motivated. The DUTA statement said that it is mysterious that the case has been filed under the non-bailable section in a hurry. Demanding the immediate release of Hridoy Chandra Mondol, the Dhaka University teachers said that if such practices are not eradicated, it would be difficult for teachers to conduct classroom activities.
Saudi Arabia on Saturday announced that it will allow 1 million pilgrims to perform the Hajj pilgrimage this year. Muslims from within and outside the country will be able to perform the Hajj as long as they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and are under the age of 65. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, only a few thousand domestic pilgrims were permitted to perform the Hajj last year. According to the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah, pilgrims from abroad will also have to present a negative COVID-19 PCR test and will face additional health precautions. The Hajj is one of Islam's 5 pillars and a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for all able-bodied Muslims who can afford it.
India's President Ram Nath Kovind has extended greetings and best wishes to all the citizens on the eve of Ram Navami. In his message, Mr. Kovind said that Ram Navami is an auspicious occasion to recall the ideals of Lord Ram and apply them in our lives. He said that Lord Ram's life inspires us to follow the sublime values of virtue, tolerance, kindness and fraternity. The President urged all the citizens to follow the path shown by Lord Ram and resolve to build a glorious nation.
The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has barred actor Will Smith from attending the Oscars for 10 years. This was done as a punishment for the actor slapping Chris Rock at the 2022 Academy Awards. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which organizes the Oscars, announced the decision on Friday. Earlier in the day, the Academy's Board of Governors met to discuss Will's punishment for his actions on the night of the award ceremony. This decision comes after the actor's objectionable behavior during the presentation ceremony on 27th of March. Will walked up to the stage at the 2022 Oscars and smacked Chris in the face after the comedian made a joke about Will's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. Later that night, Will won the Oscar for Best Actor.
In the Indian Premier League, Mumbai Indians have set a victory target of 152 runs before the Royal Challengers Bangalore at the Maharashtra Cricket Association Stadium in Pune. In reply, the Royal Challengers Bangalore were 1-1-1 for 1 in 15 overs when reports last came in. Earlier, Bangalore won the toss and opted to bowl. In the earlier match, Sunrisers Hyderabad defeated the Chennai Super Kings by 8 wickets at the D.Y. Patil Sports Academy in Mumbai. The Sunrisers Hyderabad achieved the target of 155 runs in 17.4 overs. For Hyderabad, Abhishek Sharma scored 75 of 55 balls and Rahul Tripathi made 39 of 15 balls. Skipper Kane Williamson contributed with 32 runs.
In WSF World Doubles Squash Championship, India's Deepika Pallikal-Karthik and Saurav Ghoshal defeated Adrian Waller and Alison Waters of England in the mixed doubles finals to win India's first ever gold medal at the championships. The second-seeded Indian duo won in straight sets as they thrashed the fourth-seeded pair 11-6, 11-8.
In the FIH Women's Hockey Pro League, India lost to the Netherlands 1-3 in a shootout in the second match in Bhubaneswar on Saturday evening. Both sides were locked at 1-1 at the end of the regulated time. Rajvinder Kaur scored in the first minute of the match and the Dutch side equalized it in the 53rd minute with the goal of captain Janssen Yebe. India had won the first match on Friday 2-1, the first over the world champions in over a decade.
Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu and Kidambi Shrikant's run at the Korean Open Badminton Championship ended on Saturday after they failed to enter the finals. In the women's singles semi-final played at Parma Stadium in Suncheon on Saturday, Sindhu lost to South Korea's An Seong 21-14, 21-17, while Shrikant went down to Indonesia's Jonathan Christie 21-19, 21-16 in the men's singles semi-final.
And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let us take a look at the press reports on China. AFP reports Shanghai's grinding coronavirus lockdown is slowly clogging China's supply chains as delays hit the world's busiest container port where staff are tangled in a morass of COVID controls.
Wall Street Journal reports that China has accelerated an expansion of its nuclear arsenal because of a change in its assessment of the threat posed by the US. People with knowledge of the Chinese leadership's thinking say, shedding new light on a build-up that is raising tension between the two countries.
ANI reports that given Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the path of a new order in Central and Eastern Europe away from the Chinese dominance and expansionist policies could be paved as China's external funding that lacks transparency is seen as a security threat.
Now let's have a look at what made headlines in Nepal. The Republica writes that the Nepal cabinet has decided to scrap the license issued to Chinese state-owned China Gezobo Group Corporation for the construction of the Budhi Gandaki hydropower project.
The Rising Nepal quotes Finance Minister Janardhan Sharma saying that the country's economy would not go into a tailspin like that of Sri Lanka. And now let us have a look at what made the headlines in Afghanistan. Khama Press writes that the Central Directorate of Passports in Kabul announced that they have reactivated the website of the office on Saturday, April 9th and will accept online applications of applicants.
According to the Khama Press, United Nations Assistant Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, has expressed concern over the situation of media and journalists in Afghanistan.
And now let's have a look at what made headlines in Bangladesh. Education Minister Deepu Moni has promised to look into the case of teacher Hridoy Mondol, who was arrested in Munshiganj on charges of hurting religious sentiments, reports bdnews24.com. And before we end, let us take a quick look at the headlines once again. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's party files review petition against Supreme Court's verdict on no trust motion. Voting over no confidence motion expected to be held in a short while from now. Hafiz Talha Saeed, son of Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Mohammad Saeed, notified as a terrorist under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Precaution dose of COVID vaccine for those above 18 years of age begins in India on Sunday. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to leave for United States on Saturday night on a 6-day visit. The Indian Army and DRDO successfully flight test Pinaka Mk-1 Enhanced Rocket System and Pinaka Area Denial Munition Rocket System. Saudi Arabia to allow 1 million pilgrims to perform Hajj this year. Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences bars actor Will Smith from attending the Oscars for 10 years. India win first ever gold medal at the WSF World Doubles Squash Championships in Glasgow.
And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artist from New Zealand. Vaishnavi Channa to
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.